Furious Driving, presented by Diamond Bright, keeping the Furious fleet shining, and you can protect, clean and care for your car with 10% off site-wide using code FD10. Bidding Classics, the online marketplace for appreciating classic cars, with more cars added every week. And like Diamond Bright, Lancaster Insurance Services is a company I've been a happy customer of for quite some time. Lancaster are one of the biggest specialist insurers in the UK, covering all areas of vintage to modern classic car and motorbike. So give them a call and see if you can save on your cover. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and today I'm here at Decoding, the British Motor Heritage Museum up near Birmingham. And I've brought my little Wire Edge Mini, the 2001 202nd car off the production line, pre-production car basically, for the journey because it seemed rather fitting. But as you may well know, you can actually get a heritage certificate from this place for your British car. You can find out when it was built, what the spec was, that kind of stuff. And today I'm going to go behind the scenes and see how they do that. Right, let's go and get parked up and go inside. So walking into the museum itself, we find our heroes, Richard and Emily, who are the people behind the phone calls when you ring up to ask some questions. So say hello, guys.
Hello, nice to be here.
So here we are in the archives, or the beginning of the archives.
Yeah. This is the, if you like, where we do all the certificates. This is the, if you like, where it all happens in regards to the certificates and the documents that we produce.
But there's a lot more to it, isn't there? And you're going to show me some interesting stuff behind those filing cabinets.
Yeah. So this is the main archive store.
Now, you described this as like Indiana Jones, and really not wrong. It's absolutely huge. So sales brochures on one side, I'm seeing. Rover Group, BMC to MG Rover Group. This is fairly modern stuff, I guess, then.
And then you've got older stuff going right back to the 1920s and 30s up there.
So you've got every British brand from the, well, every, not including Ford?
No, well, we've got some Ford, so we have some Ford material, but not records, or basically the BMIHT, British Motor Industry Heritage Trust, was created from Leyland Historic Vehicles in 1983. And so they collated all the historic documents, records, brochures, everything from those companies that made up BMC and BL into this one entity. And then when it was then called the Heritage Motor Centre, was built in, I think it's 93, 94, it all came here.
So housed properly, safely.
In a proper sort of, climate control facility. So and then we have sort of build records here. This part is all part of Jaguar's collections. Then we start with ours, and you can see from the lists we've got ledgers going back. Well, further down we have Wolseley records, which go back to 1901. So
1901 would be the first records we have on file.
These here we have sort of Morris records going back to the sort of late 20s. And a few, four ledgers of Austin, which go back to 29 to 31. Austin 7 records. All the rest were destroyed in the fire.
Oh, what year was that?
Oh, the fire. It was a fire in the Longbridge tunnels. I'm not sure when. But yes, those 4 ledgers happened to be not where they were meant to be.
So they were saved.
They survived, That
was lucky.
And so then we get into more modern stuff here, where you got the computer printouts as well.
So what's the most modern thing you would have in here?
Oh, unfortunately, Rover Group stopped providing the records. And MG Rover as well. And so, of course, when MG Rover collapsed,
everything was lost.
Everything was lost. So we're fine on the early stuff, absolutely no problem. The irony is we can do a heritage certificate for the first ever Mini, but we can't do one for the last.
No.
Which is a real
shame,
sort of tragedy, and we do have to let a lot of people down who have got what you call the Rover Minis. And it's very sorry we can't do anything. We can't do anything about it.
Because they just didn't share the information.
Well, they just didn't pass the records on. So literally, and then you go through, you can see there's personal collections here from journalists, from people within the industry. So Morris, Miles Thomas, Spen King, Stuart Narden, who are
sort of like diaries and things.
Oh, just their papers,
office paperwork,
and things that they were working on, and all the rest of it. So
if you're doing historical research into a car, you can help with that as well.
We do an awful lot, working with authors. In fact, Anders, who's in the reading room today, he's a prolific author. and he's often, well, he's in here researching every week. So yes, but I can't remember his name. John Presnell did a biography of Miles Thomas, and that was based on all this material.
Wow. So if someone came in and said, I've got a 1980 TR7 and can you get me a heritage certificate?
Yes.
Where would you start with that? What would be the first thing you would
basically,
do?
we'd get the build record out, which actually ironically
back where we started from.
We'd get the build record out, and it is a certified copy of the factory record. So whatever is recorded goes on the certificate, as much as we can. The only times which we can't put information on, unfortunately, is sometimes you'll get a first owner, or to who that's more to do with, say, like Aston Martins.
Oh, okay.
It'll have the first owner. Now, unless it's a public figure, we can't put it on because of data protection.
Of course, yeah.
If it's a public figure, like we did a certificate for Paul McCartney's. I can't remember if it was a DB5 or a DB6, but when it's Paul McCartney, we can put it on.
Because everyone knows it anyway.
Yeah, because he's a public figure, and so basically
So a few years ago, would you have been able to put that first owner down there? Because obviously information has changed, isn't it? You don't get on the V5 anymore.
And that's why, unfortunately, it's very frustrating for people, particularly if they're trying to, prove, or they have a problem and they just can't get that information because no organisation would even dare risking it.
They can't do it, can they?
No.
But that is what comes on to slightly something else you mentioned you do. People trying to prove the provenance of their cars. If they've got a car and they need to show, well, there's a whole bunch of things you can do on there. So
absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously the main thing is proving that a car is what it's meant to be. The second is matching numbers. Obviously, if the more original a car is, the higher its market value is going to be. I mean, the term we use is a bitzer. You get a bit of this and a bit of that, and obviously that will not command as high a value as a car which as it came out of the factory. Collectors particularly wouldn't be interested in a bitzer.
No, they really want the genuine article.
They want it to be matching numbers. They want it to be the right colour, everything.
And you'll do a record search, and you can prove that someone one way or the other.
Exactly. I mean, we do an awful lot with the bigger auction houses like Bonhams and Sotheby's, particularly with the high-end sort of like Aston Martins,
just to prove
and things like that.
What's being
because
auctioned.
that shows that this car, that's how it came out of the factory. That's the correct engine number. That's the correct colour. It is as it was, and obviously they will command a premium price.
And you also mentioned minis in particular, Mini Cooper S's, early ones.
Cooper S's. The biggest heartbreaker we have, the amount of hearts we break with Cooper S's, because people will buy with their heart, not their head.
It's easily done.
So people will apply for a heritage certificate, and we go into the records, and the common one is sometimes it's completely innocent in that somebody has just had a Mini, and perhaps in the 1970s they've put in the 1275 engine in it, and it's just gone through its life, and they think it's a genuine, but it's not. It was an ordinary Mini saloon. But you do get the fake ones, the frauds, where you go into the records and that chassis number was originally allocated to a van, and there you can say that somebody's
deliberately
created a fraudulent car.
It's a fake. We say that the vans, they tended to get worked to death pretty early on, so those VIN numbers are floating around.
The chances of that van still being around are far lower than it would if it was, say, like an ordinary Mini Mark 1 saloon. A lot of that. So I'd always say to people, check before you buy, because the ramifications of then with all classic cars and second-hand cars, it's buyer beware.
Absolutely,
and your chance of getting anything back is very remote.
Well, can you show me the oldest record now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really? I'm quite fascinated to see a 122-year-old record. It's quite a long walk back here. Oh, so this is a...
So this is from... What date are we there?
1909 to 1910.
1909.
Gosh.
So...
That was quite heavy.
Classic Edwardian.
Yeah. It's like something out of Dickens, isn't it? That kind of bound ledger.
Yeah. And there you go.
So is each page one car?
Yes.
So this is a 1909 Well, would the type be an A3?
A3, yeah.
And that's car number 10,135, which cost £305?
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of money in 1999, isn't it?
Owning this would be the equivalent of owning your own aircraft now.
Wow.
You know, it would be that type of level of expenditure.
Yeah.
And there you have the agent, H. Prosser in Glasgow.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you know roughly where it went to in the country?
Yes, yeah.
Do you have the first owner's details on there as well, or just the car's details?
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you will get, particularly if it's somebody important.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know,
I'll
like Viscount somebody or other, you know, and they'll have their coat of arms on the door and things like that, so you do get stuff like that.
Oh, so this one's another A3.
Yeah.
It's imperial green with, I can't read that, sausage black mouldings and light green lining.
So yeah, there we go. So that's how far we can go back.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. So yes, quite remarkable that they survived as well.
It is, yeah. That's just such an incredible book as well.
Yeah, and as I say, there's a whole raft of them.
Yeah.
Apparently, so I've been told, they were rescued from a skip.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure when.
Was it when Wolsey was merged with another company? Or
Well, I don't know. I don't know. But that's what I was told. That
that's quite incredible.
They were rescued from a skip.
It's amazing how little value history has had in the past, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. No, it really is. Yes, and you know, that sort of complete disregard of. You know,
it's just normal, no one cares at the moment, and then give it 5, 10 years, 20 years, and suddenly it's the most valuable thing around.
And also, you know, it gives an insight into not just where we are now, but how we developed as society and culture.
How
and this is a classic case, as I say, you know, back in this period, it was only the very wealthy which could even countenance.
Oh yeah.
And then you get obviously Henry Ford with his breakthrough of the sort of production line, which was then copied by Austin and Morris and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, what you would call sort of the middle classes could afford cars. And so it just, if you like, it liberated people.
A sea change in society.
And changed, society. So all of a sudden, people didn't have to, live in the same village where they worked. They could move and travel about to. It was like a huge emancipation.
Yeah, so the world suddenly changed. Didn't it? So,
and if you like, that's important. That sort of like gives us a reflection on.
They can. And these records kind of show that, don't they?
How we are, particularly when people are trying to ban cars.
And so, being a rover nerd, it's quite nice to see this name here behind some of my favourite cars. So have a quick look at some of his stuff, and then we'll go and see if we've got the document for my Mini. This really is very, very Indiana Jones, isn't it? You need a big sound effect on that one, actually.
So what do we have?
Spen King papers, okay. There's quite a lot, aren't there?
Oh yes, yeah.
There's a busy boy.
We'll just pick one out.
Okay,
so this is just random. So these are obviously from his personal library.
Oh, okay. So these are books he would have kept in his office for reference and things.
Yeah. I mean, I've never actually been through these.
No, I suppose there's so much stuff you really couldn't unless someone asked for it all. These are all early 70s, I guess.
Oh, it's
late
bound
60s?
to be 70s. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
70s.
when this would have been in his office. 1960. Okay. Insight into his mind, into the upwave, how to prosper from slump to boom. I wonder if that tells us about the company at that time.
Yes.
So while we're talking Spen King, I just thought it'd be interesting to go and see an early Land Rover record.
Right, I need the ladder for this.
Oh, it's the high up one. So now we're into Land Rovers, Defenders, Austin Healey's, okay. Jaguar, including Lancaster, Daimler and Vanden Plas deliveries. Now, do you say Vanden Plas or Vanden Plas?
I say Vanden Plas.
Oh, argument's going to start now.
Yeah, it's ironic because it should be Vanden Plas.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody thinks it's French, but it's...
These are quite interesting. These are very, very 1950s looking with those kind of red and green bound copies and the white writing on the back. Are these actual factory records?
Yes.
Wow, these aren't things that people have copied here at the museum.
No, these are the originals.
This is how it left the factory.
This is how they did it back then.
1960, 1961, every car that came out of the factory, someone had to sit down and write down all the details into one of the big books, which is absolutely amazing. And if you happen to buy one of these cars now, you can call up here and get those details on a certificate of your own. This is absolutely fascinating. Range Rover, I guess?
No, those are Rovers.
Rovers.
So
okay.
these are Rovers. And those are Land Rovers. 1948, I think we go back to.
Okay, so Rovers back to 48.
Yeah, and then right through to the 70s.
Okay, so pre-war Rovers.
No, it didn't survive.
Oh, they were lost, were they? Lost in the war or lost?
No. Well, you have to remember back in the day when all the factories were going to war production, they weren't really worried about keeping all this stuff. It was literally all hands to the pumps, and they were just clearing the decks.
Yeah, make room for whatever's happening now.
Yeah, and that is why so little has survived pre-war.
It's a real shame, isn't it?
It is. I mean, the only ones which really did was Cowley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
They obviously took more care.
Just stored it somewhere else, or just had enough room
and also you'll see the difference in the books. Like these are, obviously load lane records, and I mean they're little more really than old exercise books.
Aren't they? Yeah.
I mean, they are very sort of very amateurish,
basic.
Really.
Yeah. Chassis number, build date. Yeah. As a comparison of the different styles from different factories, that was the Rover, Land Rover look of things in the exercise books. This is Cowley, which is totally different.
So you can see here.
Oh, like a proper embossed ledger.
Exactly. Yeah, the difference in attitude to the way they kept their records. So properly bound.
Yeah. Actually, details stamped as well.
And
chassis numbers? No, chassis numbers.
Yeah, there's a chassis number, and then you've got the dates here and the engine number. So not a lot recorded.
But just the way it's done just seems far more.
And why those survived. And if they carried on, back pre-war to just bits on scraps of paper, basically. So we have far more older Cowley records.
That's interesting.
So it just shows the difference.
Yeah. Something else that's recorded in here are magazines as well, journals, Autocar, Motor.
So we have here Autocar and Motor, the very early ones, which we do have somewhere. So they're sort of bound copies.
Okay, so this is dehumidified in here. This is climate controlled. Yeah.
So yes, but we have the complete runs of Autocar and Motor going right
62, back. 69.
I mean, you'll see
49.
In the reading room we have bound copies there, going back to sort of like the 1940s and 30s. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is back to the.
So again, if people doing research,
it's here, just waiting to be. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's the kind of stuff that's awkward to show because of copyright. But it's a fairly modern one. Here, 1999, and here we go. Autocar bound volumes, 1932. Wow. 1921, 1906. The Autocar. That's just amazing. 1906 Autocar. Oh, this is a. July to December 1906, volume 17. It's amazing how typography has evolved into such an easier thing to read these days, isn't it? This is Daimler cars. Evolving, there we go. This is the latest development of the self-propelled wheel vehicle, comes from France in the form of the motor invalid chair, which we illustrate above. That looks quite fun, actually. I'm going to find one of those from somewhere. So yes, this is Continental News and Notes. Well, should we go get my mini record and you can explain why it was difficult to get that one? Because that was another one you said was a little hard to find.
Well, it was, but that's more because it was not where it should have been.
Oh.
It actually gone because it was part of the computer printout sort of records, which happened into Mark II mini production at Longbridge. It was in the conservation studio rather than in the boxes where it should have been.
Right, so a lot of the stuff has actually been moved to microfiche and digitised, so I guess sort of fairly common things that you mentioned. The first Land Rover is
absolutely
now
the records which we use the most, those most popular ones are because they were getting used so much, they're becoming more and more fragile. So we had them scanned to obviously preserve the originals.
And these are things like famous cars, for example, firsts. And
so, I mean, but they all come in go through a sort of selection. So this was one I was working on earlier. So this is for a TR2. Okay. So these are Triumph records, and you get, again, you just get this these were microfilmed. So all that survived was the microfilms of these cards.
Wow. So this is a scan from, what, 40, 50 years ago?
So we then took, this is 1955.
Oh gosh, a 70-year-old motor.
Basically what they did at Canley was they microfilmed the cards and then obviously got rid of the cards. Now those microfilms are incredibly fragile, it's 70 years old. So we got them scanned, and so you can see here you've got Vanguards and TR2s all mixed in together.
So finding a particular car can be quite time consuming, I guess.
Oh yeah, and some of these records, I mean, like that, they can be really poor condition. But so those, I say, that's a good example of triumphs. If we then go on to your Land Rover, that is the very first Land Rover.
Wow. Okay. So top line
01. So it came, build date is the 11th of March, and went to the experimental department Rover Company, Solihull.
Wow.
And that's the one out there now.
Yeah. In the museum as we speak.
Yes. Yeah.
That's number 2 is 15th of March, and that one is. Yeah. I can't read that. That's a person's name.
But obviously internal.
Rover Company,
all Rover bods. Yeah. So that's your first Land Rover.
So this does tell a story, because you can look through that and everything. At the point, seeing which car goes where, you can see.
I mean, we're very lucky with Land Rovers, because literally we have from the very beginning of production there, and post the sort of, if you like, the traditional records stop in '89, and post '89 we have access to an internal Land Rover vehicle database, so you can put in the VIN and the details come back.
Oh, well, is that up to the present day, or is that?
So exactly. So we can cover literally every single Land Rover that's ever been produced.
That's amazing. So,
but certainly with all the Freelanders and all the variations of Discovery.
I never thought of getting a Freelander one.
Yeah.
I've got my Freelander.
We could do a Freelander certificate.
Yeah.
No problem
that'd be brilliant. Yeah.
So those are Land Rovers.
Yeah.
So you wanted to look at the first
Range Rover.
Range Rover.
Yeah. I guess that was another internal Rover one.
Yeah. Absolutely. So these again, they're microfilmed of the ledgers.
Okay. Yes. This is again fairly basic information.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So there's number 1.
And that's a vehicle.
12th of December, came out on the 22nd of December, and went to the engine.
I can't read that from here. Deep Olive. Okay, and that's gone to the engineering department.
Yeah, so you can see the first 4 went to the engineering department.
And then number 5 went to quality control. Okay.
Yeah, so they're all going to
different departments
within.
This is quite an interesting story it tells of how the car was developed and who had input on it. And So as well as personal interest in your own vehicle, it's fascinating historical interest.
So do you want to see the first Mini?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. It looks quite proper, this one, but then say Cowley again.
This is Longbridge.
Oh, is it Longbridge?
This is Longbridge. So again, the first sort of Minis, Mark 1s, lovely ledgers, lots of information there. You can see number 1, Speedwell blue, and it went to Mr. Isigonis, as did the second.
Oh, wow. What colour was the second one?
Tartan red.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, both, were they just basic?
Just Austin saloons, nothing special.
Right, so this is what we came here for.
Yeah,
exciting. That's my name on the front. And let's see what's inside. Thank you. I'm going to crease it now. This is, so we've got certificate number. Morris Mini Mark II Saloon, got the VIN number, which hopefully is correct to the car. I'll check that later. Engine number, again, I'll check that. Body number, not recorded. This is because it's the digital era.
Yes, so there's very limited information, but...
Yeah. So right-hand drive, home market Super Deluxe, which we all know is correct. This is brilliant. Sandy beige. Hood colour not applicable. Date built 8th July 1969. Date dispatched 9th of July 1969. God, they were turning around quickly, weren't they? And destination Stewart and Arden Limited, Acton. Invoice number, is that from the factory invoice?
Yes, it is, yes.
Okay, so when the dealer ordered it, that was the...
Yes, that went on, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Other information, Mark COY814H was issued in Greater London, Southwest. We know that because we know where it was bought. Oh, that's fascinating. That's also interesting because S-Beige, we had S-Beige on the receipt.
Yeah, but we're
and
able to tell you that
that was definitely correct, yeah, because I wonder what S stood for. But it's quite interesting, you were telling me earlier about how in 1969-70, when the Mark II Minis came out, there's not much information because they've gone digital.
I know, because of the new computer systems, they were very limited to what they could put on because they were trying to save money and everything. So unfortunately, there are some things that are missed off compared to the earlier ones. But
that's kind of an ironic shame. The more modern car with a more modern recording system.
yeah, you would have thought there'd be more, but no, it's the other way around.
The memory was so expensive, they just couldn't afford to record that much information.
Yeah.
But that is fantastic. That is so cool. That is. Definitely get that framed and hang it over the over the Mini in the garage. That's really cool. Thank you very much indeed. That's awesome. Thank you. Now, one thing you might have noticed here is that I happen to know this car was bought from Eustace Watkins, the Wolseley dealer in Croydon. But it says here the car was ordered by Stewart and Arden Limited. Now, that is a discrepancy, but there is a reason, which is...
Basically, Stewart and Arden were a huge entity in the southeast, branches all over the place, and because of the size of them, they would act as a distributor for other dealerships within their area. So Eustace Watkins, being primarily a Wolseley dealership, would have then gone through Stewart and Arden to get the Morris Mini. So they would have ordered it, then Stewart and Arden would have then distributed it to Eustace Watkins, who was then the selling dealer. And this is not uncommon at all. You get this a lot.
So the customer will go in there, they say, I want this colour.
Exactly.
From Eustace.
And then Eustace Watkins would probably get in touch with Stewart and Arden, who would have been the main BMC dealership within the area, and then ordered it through them, and then they would have distributed it through to them. And they say you see it a lot because with some records we have warranties where you see the selling dealer on the warranty isn't the same as the dealer that the car was distributed to from the factory, and it's exactly that which was happening. There's these big sort of dealerships were acting as distributors as well.
That's really interesting. It's like another piece of history that kind of comes back together when you find these little nuggets of information.
We can link these together because they're both basically in the same area. If it would be if it had been a Glasgow dealership,
that would raise questions.
We'd go, hold on a minute, something's wrong here. But no, because they are both in the same area, it makes absolute sense that Stewart and Arden acted as a distributor for Eustace Watkins.
That makes perfect sense. But if you're interested in the carcheology of this kind of history, what happened in the past, this is just absolutely fascinating, and it just adds a little more levels of detail to the knowledge that goes behind your car. It's fascinating stuff.
Like to think so.
Yeah.
It's a good job.
It's great fun. Okay, so Emily is working on a few wallets for people at the moment, and so what have we got, and what are the different options that you can offer?
So there's a few options you can get. Obviously you can get the standard certificate like you've got, where it's just the basic information, which if you're registering a vehicle is what the DVLA will require. They won't want any lamination or photos or anything. However, it's quite a nice touch to have like a picture of your car on it.
Okay, so you can supply a picture to you guys.
So the customer will supply a picture, and then we'll make sure that gets put on there, which is a nice touch. You could also order a technical specification where we give you all the technical information about how your car would have left the factory and everything.
So let's have a look at one of those.
So that's just a sample one for a Discovery Series 1.
Oh, okay, so it's got the kind of gearbox in it, the spec sheet basically, isn't it? So
yeah, it is.
That's cool.
And we now offer as well a supporting letter, so if you do need to register your vehicle or anything, and send that off to DVLA or any foreign authorities as well. So that's
if you're importing a car, if you're finding a car at a barn that's lost its details.
Exactly, yes.
You can
then
do that.
We'll just sort of do a letter to explain what our certificates are, that they're a certified copy of the factory record. So what we say is the build date is the fact of when it left the factory.
So maybe if a car's lost its original registration, somehow lost its VIN number from...
So they'll need one of the heritage certificates to do that.
You can do that. That's
cool. We also produce document wallets.
Oh, that's nice.
So we get, obviously the certificate goes in there, and we got a copy of a brochure that we print out.
Oh,
so
cool.
it's just... we try and match it as closely as we can to the car,
because
with
you've got all the
age and
records in the
everything.
files to
whether
go back
it's like
to.
a North American car, we pick that, and then obviously an original publicity photo.
That's cool.
Got a copy of that as well.
Excellent.
There's just a few options that we do, and obviously the Aston Martin, if you've got an Aston Martin, proper sort of leather.
Oh, that is lovely. Actually, you've got that lovely kind of leathery feeling there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But yeah, if you've got the Aston Martin, that certainly deserves it. But then, all these cars do. They're all fantastic little fun cars, and just our own motoring history, our motoring heritage. So brilliant.
Yeah.
So that has been absolutely fascinating, a real incredible glimpse behind the scenes of what goes on here. So if you ring up or email, say, can I get a certificate for my car? This is how they learn what your car was and when it was built and all that other information. So thank you, Emily. Thank you, Richard. Great to meet you guys. And thank you very much indeed for this one, for Morris Mini, Sylvester. Goodbye. Oh, like, subscribe, that stuff, you know, blah, blah, blah.